Hello, my name is Tony Gorton, and I will be explaining the standards for world language. I will be looking at the Idaho standards as well as the Boise School District standards for world language instruction. Having taught in Michigan for 4 years and being new to Idaho, it was important to familiarize myself with Idaho standards. Overall, I found them to be very similar to what I was used to. I currently teach at Capitol High School in the Boise School District. Boise is the capital of Idaho, and the school district was founded in 1865, making it the second oldest in the state. It is also the second largest district in the state with an enrollment of approximately 25,000 students with a total of 53 schools. Capitol High School is one of 4 senior high schools and was founded in 1965. We have approximately 1,300 students grades 10th through 12th. Capitol offers many accelerated and AP classes. The languages offered are Spanish, German, French, and Latin. I absolutely love teaching at Capitol High School. The staff and students are outstanding, making it a wonderful work atmosphere. One thing I really love about teaching for the Boise School District are the class sizes. The Boise School District has always kept class sizes small, but in 2014 and 15, when they moved from a 6 to 7 period day, class sizes got even smaller. Just this year, Idaho revised their standards for world languages. The committee unanimously agreed to adopt the ACTFL World Readiness Standards for learning languages. In fact, over 40 states have adopted the 5 Cs to create state standards for learning languages. ACTFL stands for the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. As a world language teacher, the ACTFL standards are something I'm very familiar with and have been incorporating into my instruction since I was in the College of Education at Grand Valley State University. Here is a short video explaining what the ACTFL standards are.
Learning languages prepares us to connect in the multilingual and multicultural world we share. ACTFL and 16 other language organizations collaborated to create the World Readiness Standards for learning languages. Recently, the standards were modified to focus on literacy, real-world applications of language, and 21st century skills. These standards serve as a roadmap to guide learners to communicate effectively and interact with global competence while participating in communities locally and globally. Supporting this vision are 5 goal areas, also known as the 5 Cs: communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities. Integrating these goal areas into instructional programs helps students become world-ready educated citizens. Within the 5 Cs are the 11 content standards that describe the knowledge and abilities students should acquire throughout their language education. Let's take a look at the goal areas and the content standards. The communication goal is divided into 3 content standards, describing the 3 modes or purposes of communication. The interpersonal mode for interacting with others and negotiating meaning, the interpretive mode for understanding and analyzing what is heard, read, or viewed, and the presentational mode for creating messages to inform, explain, persuade, or narrate. Each mode addresses how learners speak, write, listen, view, and use media, anytime, anywhere, with anyone. How can we measure student growth towards this goal? The World Readiness Standards include sample performance indicators that allow students and teachers to reflect on and track progress in all 3 modes of communication using can-do statements. These statements describe real-life applications of language, showing what learners can do at each stage from novice to intermediate to advanced. And now let's talk about the other 4 Cs. These outline what students do with the language and how they utilize it in a wide variety of contexts. In the Cultures and Comparisons content standards, students use the target language to investigate, explain, and reflect on aspects of language and how cultural perspectives influence our practices and products. In the Connections content standards, students build critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and they also access and evaluate diverse perspectives. In the Communities content standards, students use the language within and beyond the classroom, as well as set goals and reflect on their progress. And how can we observe student progress in these goal areas? The World Readiness Standards include sample progress indicators. Sample progress indicators are specific to student age and language level. acknowledging that learners' cognitive and maturity levels may not match their language abilities. This means that even though learners at the same proficiency level have similar language abilities, the tasks they perform with the language change based on their age, experience, and interests. In review, the World Readiness Standards are organized around the 5 Cs, with sample performance indicators for identifying what learners can do in communication, and sample progress indicators demonstrating a wide variety of applications using language. Combined, these elements show us what learners should know, be able to do, and how well they can do it. The standards help learners understand their growing ability to communicate effectively and interact with global competence, and provide language educators at all levels a clear roadmap to follow in order to guide their students to a place of world readiness. Visit standardsforlanguages.org.
All right, as the video described, the ACTFL standards focus on the 5 Cs: communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities. Within the 5 standards, there are also substandards. The substandards that play the biggest role in my instruction are interpersonal communication, interpretive communication, and presentational communication. Besides the Idaho standards that are based on the ACTFL standards, the Boise School District also has standards for world languages levels 1 through 4. They are fairly similar to the ACTFL standards, but go into greater detail and are more specific. Here are the standards for level 1. Within the standards, we have different goals. For example, listening, speaking, reading, writing, critical thinking, history, geography, and culture. Here are the standards for level 2. They're very similar. This is the same format throughout all of the levels, just different substandards and different specific things that the student should be able to do. So it's fairly similar to the ACTFL standards, but like I said, much more specific. For example, it says here, use language structures to express degrees or preferences or differences. For example, I like hamburgers. I prefer hamburgers to hot dogs. And then here are the levels, the standards for levels 3 and 4. All right, how do I incorporate the standards into my lessons? Well, when I am lesson planning, I think of my unit or my theme, and then I ask myself 4 questions. The first question I ask myself is, what do I want students to learn? What is our end goal? Then I ask myself, what standards am I going to include? Then I look at what activities I will use to accomplish this, and lastly, how will I check for students' understanding? Here are some example lesson plans of mine that include the standards. So here you can see on the left a lesson plan. I have my unit, my topic, my objectives, the equipment and resources needed, the structure, all my activities, and how I will close the lesson. And then I also have listed my standards, and these are the ACTFL standards. On the right, same thing, I have my standards listed, but then I go into greater detail of how students will accomplish these standards. For example, for interpersonal communication, students will work cooperatively in groups using the target language to produce a skit on a given topic. For interpretive communication, students will use what they know about German culture and noise pollution to give an oral skit. For presentational communication, students will perform a skit to their class. And lastly, for practice of culture, students present skits that reflect perspectives from the culture studied. For me, when I create lessons plans, especially when I'm being observed by my administrator, it's important for me to put the standards on there so that I know and my administrator knows that I am incorporating the standards into my lessons and how I'm doing that. Other ways I incorporate the standards into my instruction. I am a huge fan of Schoology. I've been using it for years now. It's just a great platform. I like it because students can access it from any computer, from any device, or any smartphone. So Schoology has a really great app that students can download, and then they can quickly and easily access it. I also like that Schoology provides parent codes, so parents also have access to my class website and they can see my calendar. So I post my calendar on there. I have folders for each unit. I post digital copies of every single thing we do in class to Schoology, so it's just a really great resource. This year, I'm working towards becoming paperless, so I have uploaded all of my assessments to Schoology, and students take them that way. What I really like about Schoology is I can create pre and post tests. So my district requires us to do a technology goal each year, and this year my technology goal was to give a pre and post test to all of my units, which I've been doing on Schoology. And Schoology just does a really great way of tracking students' learning, collecting data for you as a teacher, and putting it together nicely in a chart for you, and that's what I've been able to use to go back to my administrators and show them the data I've been collecting on my students. So on Schoology, you can create assignments. I create a lot of homework assignments and writing assignments on Schoology for my students. And at the bottom, there's a little target symbol, and that lets you align your assignment to learning objectives. So when you click on the target, it brings you to this screen, and you can choose what standards you are aligning your assignment with. For example, you can create your own learning objectives. You can align it to the Common Core, Next Generation Science Standards. I, of course, align mine to the ACTFL standards for foreign language, but then they also have college and career readiness standards for adult education. So once I click on the ACTFL ones, it brings me to this, and then here are all of the 5 C's, and then I can click on them and align them to those substandards, and it's just really quick and easy, a great tool for aligning my assignments to the standards. All right, in conclusion, as a young teacher, I feel it's very important to keep these things in mind. You need to know not every lesson is going to hit all of the standards. So when you're lesson planning, just think about what you really want to focus on. And also that incorporating the 5 C's comes naturally when teaching a foreign language. The 5 C's are just a natural part of what we do in the classroom, so it's nothing scary or intimidating. You're going to be using these anyways. It's just really aligning or putting your lesson plans into the language that administrators want to see and hear, that you are aligning to the standards. But the standards are really there just to support good teaching. This is what you're doing in the classroom as a foreign language teacher anyway, so it's just natural. And so just being aware of them, then you can align or put on your lesson plans what standards you're hitting. All right, thank you very much for listening to my presentation today. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to email me. I'd love to hear your thoughts and any feedback you have. Thank you.